Are there advanced beings in our galaxy who are also active on planet Earth? And if so, how do they impact our human civilization?
All right, very interesting question. Well, definitely there are, but you see, we don't know much about our Earth, let alone outer space. So the first question would be, what civilizations or species are there on our Earth besides us? So sometimes, like, we receive messages or some kind of maybe contacts or channelings, and we think that or assume that these are beings from some other galaxies. Or so again, when we look at our space and galaxy, we think in terms of physical reality, the reality that is familiar to us. But consciousness exists on so many levels, and it would be relevant to talk about dimensions, different frequencies of conscious light matter, what I spoke about in my book. So conscious light matter, it means even though we consider ourselves as physical beings, because we register each other as physical or solid beings, is because we share the same dimensional frequency on some level. And so we can read ourselves as information. We can recognize this information, and we have the capacity, which is sort of our brain and nervous system, to decipher this information in our head as our physical bodies. So we see each other this way. Now, if we were to meet a higher frequency, we might, or even a different type of frequency at all, like maybe it doesn't matter high or low, but a different frequency that our brains are not made to decipher, register, or interpret, then we won't usually register them. So there are different types of beings, and there are different dimensions. These dimensions are different only by frequency. So if and we ourselves as human beings are multidimensional, but we don't register our own higher frequency because of the current age. So when we are able to switch modes of our own frequency, we will be able to understand that we do exist on other dimensions as well. So if we have that ability to perceive our, let's say, subtle frequency, or we are evolved to that degree, the whole idea of reality and our existence is also different then. So this current dimension at this point of time, or in this particular cycle that we exist, which is now, is the point where our frequency is rather low. So it's dispersed, and that's why we exist as the collective consciousness, or we are somehow represented through separate units, which are bodies. So we do not comprehend ourselves as a collective. The higher you go in evolution, the more unified field of consciousness you come across. So the existence is not always what human beings make of it. You know, we kind of see everything through the human context. And so that's why we also cannot break through the human type of spirituality, meaning the spirituality of the body that is tied up to our physical existence. Because we believe that if we have supernatural abilities, these supernatural abilities belong to our current physical body. But we don't realize that the current physical body is limited to this dimension. It may have all the supposedly supernatural abilities only when we realize our subtler frequency and existence. So we can, I would say, like the abilities of our subtle being or body, whatever you call it, may transpire into our physical. Then you may say, okay, your physical now is more advanced, but it's not the physical, it's because you became aware of the subtle. And because the subtle is more refined, so it has more energy, it has different qualities, and so you can merge them together. And here you go, your super abilities. Now, the further you go, the less physical the existence is, and the more collective the experience is. The collective means unification, means merging, means intelligence, rather than just existence in the divided or fragmented state of being. So, but definitely apart from that, what comes to Earth, there are lots of different civilizations or fragments of ancient intelligence and civilizations that survived through the times and cataclysms, and they are still in some number here on Earth. And many times, or very often, we believe that we receive some kind of extraterrestrial contact, but the reality is that these civilizations just don't want to be known, that they exist still on the Earth, on some, let's say, on patches, in hidden areas, you know. But hidden means that you may walk there, or, well, most probably you wouldn't be able to walk, but let's say if you even cross certain areas of that hidden place, you won't be able to probably register it, because it will appear invisible to your current senses, because that is of a different dimension. So many these beings that we consider being from outer space actually do exist here. They exist also underground. There are also other species or civilizations that we're not aware of due to our currently low vibration, and you may say kind of limited intelligence. So intelligence which only wants to grab and serve oneself or gain power through certain piece of knowledge or something like that. So our consciousness is not able to coexist with other types of species rather than our own. So they also do exist in some other areas, and there are other realms on Earth which are deep down, underground, in the sea. And the whole idea, I mean, what we think of the Earth in general could be also questioned, because also eras, you know, different eras means that there's different vibrational level. So we think that everything happened on one and the same Earth. But this current Earth is of this frequency, this vibration, There could be other type of frequency and vibration. There are some subterranean realms which are of different vibration. So the point is we don't know a lot. And whether we know about it or we don't, it doesn't do anything to us. Because even if we were revealed this information, or if we knew something about it, we wouldn't be able to do anything. It doesn't, I mean, all these revelations and secrets and conspiracies and everything, it is just intellectual information. It's information that may entertain our intellect, but it has no evolutionary value for now, because in order to come to know this type of information, we need to have evolved or to have developed this frequency within ourselves, so that we can be tolerant and accepting and understanding other species or other potential beings or living beings, whatever. But again, life, if you look at life in the human context, it's life in the body. If you look at life on a higher level, it is frequent, it's a different frequency, it's the existence of higher frequency of intelligence as a collective cluster. And so the actual extraterrestrial consciousness of a higher level will not directly impact or physically appear on the earth at this point of time. The only way it may direct its maybe, or transmit its knowledge or information or give some kind of an impact is by distant transmission. You know, in ancient times, there was natural hierarchy. Not the hierarchy of oppression, but there was, for example, there were kings, but these kings were not of an oppressive type, or so these kings had ability to receive transmissions of gods, or in other words, of beings from different realms, and receive that knowledge. So let's say if God's capacity was 100% of ability to transmit and receive, the kings on earth had, let's say, 80% to 100. So they were able to receive, and they would transmit it to other beings, and other beings were lower than king, not because someone oppressed, but because of the lower intelligence capacity. What is lower intelligence? It's the capacity to receive higher transmission from the higher realm. So only those were real priests. The priesthood was one of the highest. Actually, sorry, I said the kings were able to receive 80. Sorry, it was wrong. The priests were the first to be in contact, but they were not called priests. They were actually direct sort of descendants or representatives of those. And they were in contact. And later on, they were called priests or some kind of godly servants. So it's not that they belonged to some special family or something. They had that capacity, that intelligence to receive and transmit. They would transmit it to the kings, because the kings had transmissive ability of, say, 60 to 80%. So, but they would know, because they would have that capacity and ability to not only take that knowledge in, but to also transmit it and, let's say, make it work further. Or let's say they had an idea. So that knowledge, which is intangible, would transmute in the king's brain into a tangible idea. I want to organize this land into this, for example. But then they would need beings who have lesser capacity to receive spiritual transmission, but more capacity to use their creativity to make these plans work, or to produce, actually, to give these plans, these ideas, the actual tangible form, or make a result out of it visible in the physical reality. So these beings would be architects, engineers, and so on and so forth. And then, even though they would organize everything, plan, and be ready to execute it, they would need beings who have lesser intelligence or lesser capacity to receive anything or do, but more of a capacity to do things with their hands, to really know the way to bring these plans and calculations into the actual form. And so these were workers. Their intelligence was 10 to 30%. So now our understanding of workers or slaves is not what it actually was. Because slavery became by oppression and theft, kidnapping and so on. But the actual point of workers and slaves was because of the level of their intelligence. So people were in power not because they grabbed that power, because they were thirsty for recognition, but because they had that evolved intelligence. And it was all about the ability to receive higher forms of transmission of knowledge and bring it into something tangible. And because of that, there was natural hierarchy. But then, because of the lower age, because of degradation, everything became corrupt. And so those who were workers became kings, because they used power and oppression, fear, magic, rituals, and so on and so forth. So it all got mixed, and all the higher intelligence withdrew. And so whatever left in Kali Yuga was not what originally was there. But the systems remained somehow. So, you see, the same goes, like, you can't just want to become something if you're not. You cannot just start pretending that you communicate with some outer space creatures or civilizations. There has to be that ability, either genetic, no, it's not either, it's always, there's something with genetic there, as well as the substance, consciousness is of that kind. Many people think they communicate with beings who are extraterrestrial, but they can't check it because they don't know who contacts them, who is it in touch. There are so many demonic beings who may appear, mesmerize you. Actually, the highly evolved beings, a high frequency consciousness does not need to appear in the form of any kind. All these apparitions and appearances of some sort of supernatural beings are usually demonic shows, and they captivate ignorant people. So they may call themselves angels or this or that, but they are of a different kind. And then a human falls for it. Because that human who falls has no capacity to decipher who they're dealing with, right? And so they start receiving these messages, start feeling that they're in touch with some spiritual beings, or beings who can say that they are from other stars and planets and so on and so forth. Higher frequency lives in a different sort of realm of existence where maybe there are no galaxies, so different type of arrangement unimaginable for our current state. So we always think that if we were to go somewhere, we would go physically there. We were planning to create all these technologies, machines or flying machines to travel through time and space. But we don't understand that from ancient times, all the travel was possible because our, let's say, highly evolved ancestors, if we have such ancestors, lived through multidimensional kind of paradigm. They did sometimes have existence on a more physical dimension or kind of grosser dimension. They still were aware of the subtle dimension. There were different portals, and so they could just easily go into a subtler dimensions, but they didn't take their physical body with them. And so, yeah, consciousness may exist in so many ways, but it does not happen the way current human beings may imagine. So we see all these drawings of some extraterrestrial. People have great imagination, I do admit. But again, the reality of this existence may be different. And again, at the moment, people witness all kinds of phenomena, like occult phenomena, paranormal activities. Sometimes our brain may register foreign energies, but it doesn't know what to make out of it. So it employs somewhat imagination, tries to sort of decipher a foreign cluster of energy and put it into a context of a human consciousness and human existence. And that's where sometimes we see bizarre, or people may see bizarre sort of images when they are in touch with some strange energy clusters. But these energy clusters are usually of lower frequency, but they're still invisible. They are part of the subtle dimension, but of a lower frequency. So again, because we do not share the same frequency, we can't really see them on the same level. Because they are lower frequency, somewhat we may register the presence and somehow start creating with our brains something out of it. So yeah, I hope I answered the question somehow. I can't just say more at this point, but there is a lot of stuff going on this planet alone, but this planet itself is not understood properly. And so the dimensions of this planet are not known. Because, for example, when you look at the sky, you may think that there is space or something out there. But what if you lived in a bubble in an ocean? And what if that which you're witnessing above is just a frozen it's a creation. It's a result of someone's creation where you exist not in the space, but in an ocean, in a larger ocean, but you're just a bubble of some frequency. I mean, you can speculate about it, but just ponder. And so you believe when you look up, that there is something out there, but maybe the way everything is completely different. And all this idea of going in a linear way through the spaces is foolish and bound to our human imagination, but has nothing to do with reality. So, yeah, a lot to ponder there.